It begins with a sound, the heavy clink of coins, the hollow buzz of a dial tone, the muffled hum of voices echoing through steel corridors. A prison payphone. For most inmates, it is a fragile lifeline. A few minutes of connection to a mother's voice, a lover's laugh, a child growing up without them. A reminder that the world beyond concrete walls still exists. But for one man, that lifeline became something else. A weapon, a business, an empire. This is the story of how a prisoner, locked away from the world, managed to build a criminal network so vast, so invisible, and so unlikely that investigators still whisper about it today. And it all started with a payphone bolted to a prison wall. Prison is supposed to end power, strip it away, lock it behind iron bars. But history has shown us the truth. Confinement doesn't kill ambition, it reshapes it. When you remove the tools of freedom, people find new ones. And in this case, that tool was a simple receiver, a phone cord stretched thin, and the seconds ticking away as a robotic voice announced, "You have 1 minute remaining." From those calls, coded in language so ordinary it seemed invisible, he built something extraordinary. At first, the calls were mundane, asking about family, checking on friends. A quiet voice, careful not to raise suspicion, but in between the small talk, orders slipped through, coded phrases, innocent words that carried dangerous weight. Groceries meant a shipment, visitors meant a target, weather meant the police. Nobody suspected, not the guards who walked by as he cradled the phone, not the warden who dismissed him as just another inmate, not even the other prisoners, many of whom thought he was wasting his time on long phone calls. But behind those conversations, something was moving. Outside, his allies were listening and obeying. Deliveries were made, payments collected, enemies silenced. The empire grew quietly, like roots beneath the ground, invisible until it was too late. Within months, his reach extended beyond the prison yard. Entire neighborhoods came under his shadow. Money flowed through laundromats, car dealerships, small stores, ordinary places hiding extraordinary operations. The man who slept in a locked cell each night was in reality running a kingdom. All through the crackling voice of a prison payphone, investigators who later pieced together his operation described it as genius in its simplicity. No laptops, no hidden servers, no encrypted apps. Just one phone, because the less sophisticated the method, the harder it was to detect. Nobody thought to look at the most obvious tool in the room. And perhaps that's the most frightening part. He didn't need advanced technology. He didn't need freedom. He needed only people. And fear. The deeper investigators looked, the more shocking it became. One phone call could set a chain of events in motion that ended in violence miles away. One conversation could move thousands of dollars. With a calm voice and a few words, he directed chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra. And the prison system allowed it. Whether by incompetence, negligence, or corruption, the walls that were supposed to contain him became meaningless. In fact, they may have helped him. Locked inside, untouchable, he was insulated from retaliation. Nobody could reach him. Nobody could knock on his door. His empire thrived in part because he was untouchable. But then came the unraveling. Authorities had long suspected something was wrong, but proving it was another matter. The breakthrough came with wiretaps, hidden recorders listening in on the very payphones that had fueled his empire. What they uncovered was staggering. Conversations that seemed harmless suddenly snapped into focus. They were not about groceries or the weather. They were orders, directives, blueprints of a criminal enterprise being run from a concrete cell. And once investigators began pulling on the threads, the whole fabric came apart. Dozens of operatives were arrested, bank accounts seized, businesses raided, the empire collapsed in a wave of indictments. But by then, the damage was done. In the aftermath, experts began asking the bigger question. How many more empires like this exist, hidden behind prison walls? Because this wasn't just one man's ingenuity. This was a system's vulnerability. Across the world, prisoners continue to direct cartels, gangs, and networks with nothing more than access to a phone. Some smuggle in cell phones, others bribe guards, and many, like him, use the payphones provided by the very institutions designed to cut them off from society. It's a paradox. A prison can lock away the body, but not the voice. And in a world where power travels on whispers and connections, sometimes the voice is enough. When I think about this story, I can't help but reflect on what it means about control. We imagine prisons as walls that divide us from danger, keeping the chaos outside. But maybe the truth is darker. Maybe those walls don't stop the chaos, they just hide it. One man proved it. That freedom isn't always measured in movement. Sometimes it's measured in influence. Sometimes the strongest chains are the invisible ones. And it all began with the sound of a coin, a dial tone, and the crackling voice of a man who refused to let iron bars define him. If a prisoner can build an empire from a payphone, what else is possible in the shadows of the world we can't see? That's the question that lingers. And maybe it's the one we need to keep asking. If you want to hear more hidden stories like this, the kind that reveal the unseen forces shaping our world, subscribe to the channel. Because the truth is always stranger, darker, and more human than we think.